Here is the question most people never think to ask. Not, how do I avoid dying young? Most of us feel reasonably safe from that. The real question is this. What does it actually take to arrive at 80 or 90 years old, still sharp, still strong, still genuinely present for your life? Because there are two versions of living to 90. In the first, you get there. In the second, you get there. And you're still you. The research that has quietly accumulated over the past 2 decades, from 5 specific regions of the world, from studies tracking tens of thousands of people across lifetimes, from geneticists, epidemiologists, and public health scientists, now tells a remarkably consistent story about what separates those two versions. And the most important finding in all of it is this: how long you live and how well you live it is mostly not in your genes. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through what that research actually says. Not the wellness industry version. The peer-reviewed, numbers-on-the-table version. The 3 factors that the longest-lived people on Earth share across cultures, continents, and centuries of human history. And at the 7-minute mark, I'm going to tell you about the one longevity factor that appears in every single blue zone, in every single study of centenarians, in a Harvard study that ran for more than 80 years, that almost nobody includes when they talk about living longer. It is the most overlooked variable in the entire science of aging. Stay with me. I'm Dr. Michael Hartwell. This channel exists to give you the kind of honest, science-backed health information that should be in every clinic room, and too rarely is. Let's start with the gene question, because most people carry a belief about this that the science has now directly challenged. Twin studies, the gold standard for separating what's inherited from what's chosen, consistently show that genetic factors account for roughly 20 to 25% of the variation in how long humans live. That is the conclusion of studies from Danish twins, Swedish twins, UK Biobank participants across 75,000 people, and the University of Calabria's landmark work on centenarians, 20 to 25%. That means 75 to 80% of your lifespan is determined by factors that are not written into your DNA at birth. This is not a small finding. This is one of the most liberating facts in all of science. It means that whether or not your parents or grandparents lived long, healthy lives, the choices available to you today carry far more weight in your biology than the genes you inherited. The question then becomes, what does that 75% look like? What are the people who actually reach 90, 100 now are mentally clear, physically mobile, emotionally alive, actually doing? That's where the blue zone research comes in. 5 regions of the world have been identified and validated as having exceptional concentrations of people who live past 90 and 100. Sardinia in Italy, Okinawa in Japan, Nicoya in Costa Rica, Ikaria in Greece, and Loma Linda in California. Researchers have spent decades in these communities, cross-checking birth records, medical histories, and lifestyle data. And what emerges is not a supplement protocol. It's not a specific macronutrient ratio. It's not a morning routine. It's a pattern. 3 interlocking factors that appear consistently in every blue zone community, and that are now backed by independent research spanning millions of participants across completely different populations. The first is movement embedded in daily life. A study published in the Journal of Population Aging in March 2025 specifically examined the physical activity patterns of blue zone centenarians. And the researchers found something that surprised them. These people were not following anything resembling a structured Western exercise program. They weren't tracking their 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. They weren't going to the gym. They were constantly, naturally, incidentally moving, farming, walking to neighbors, weaving, tending gardens, carrying things, climbing hills. The message from Harvard's analysis of this data is worth stating directly. Staying active is what matters, not performing specific exercises, not intensity, not a session, but a body that is never sedentary for long because movement is woven into ordinary life. Think of the difference this way. A body that sits for 8 hours and then exercises for 45 minutes has spent most of its day in the metabolic state that drives insulin resistance, vascular stiffening, and inflammatory cytokine production. A body that walks, moves, and stays on its feet throughout the ordinary day maintains a fundamentally different metabolic baseline. The longevity prescription from this data is not complicated. It's the removal of prolonged stillness and the return of movement to the fabric of daily life. You don't have to give up the gym. Just make sure the gym is not the only movement that happens. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part the longevity industry almost never explains clearly. Movement and diet, powerful as they are, account for only part of the gap. There is a second factor in the blue zone data that is just as biologically significant, and it is one that most people reading health content never connect to how long they live. It's the presence or absence of purpose. In Japan, the concept is called ikigai, roughly translated as reason for getting up in the morning. The Osaki study followed 43,391 Japanese adults over 7 years and asked each of them a single question: do you have ikigai in your life? The people who answered no, who reported no sense of meaning or purpose, had a 50% higher risk of all-cause mortality over the follow-up period. 50%, not after controlling for nothing. After adjusting for age, body mass index, alcohol use, smoking, physical activity, sleep duration, education, and medical history. The Japan Collaborative Cohort Study confirmed this specifically for cardiovascular mortality. Adults with a strong sense of ikigai had significantly lower rates of dying from heart disease, with hazard ratios showing roughly a 26 to 30% reduced cardiovascular mortality risk. And the mechanism is not mysterious. A life that feels purposeful activates different biological systems than a life that feels empty. People with purpose sleep better. They move more consistently. They maintain social connections because those connections are part of their reason for being. They recover faster from illness. They have measurably lower levels of the inflammatory cytokines, IL-6, CRP, that drive cardiovascular and cognitive aging. Purpose is not a philosophical luxury. It is a biological input. It changes what happens inside your cells. Now, the thing I promised you at the start, the single most overlooked longevity variable, the one that appears in every blue zone, in every centenarian study, in 80 years of Harvard research, and that is rarely mentioned when people talk about living longer. It is the quality and depth of your close relationships. A meta-analysis of 148 studies involving more than 300,000 participants found that people with strong social bonds had a 50% greater chance of surviving across a given follow-up period compared to those with weak social ties. 50%. The effect size is comparable to quitting smoking. It exceeds the survival advantage of exercise. It exceeds the survival advantage of a healthy diet. The Holt-Lundstad meta-analysis, incorporating data from more than 3.4 million people, found that social isolation increased the risk of premature death by 29%. A systematic review published in 2024, examining 86 prospective studies, found social isolation associated with a 35% increase in all-cause mortality. And the Harvard study of adult development, begun in 1938, still ongoing, now following the children of its original participants, concluded after more than 80 years that close relationships were more protective of long-term health and happiness than money, fame, social class, intelligence, or genetics. 80 years of data. One finding above all others. The U.S. Surgeon General has stated that the mortality impact of lacking social connection is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not 10. 15. And here's the part that makes this not just striking, but actionable. In the Ikaria Blue Zone study, 77% of participants over 90 reported daily contact with friends or community members. 81% participated in religious or community events. The social structure was not incidental to their longevity. It was inseparable from it. And here is where the science meets something far older than the research. Across Islamic tradition, and across virtually every major faith tradition on earth, the gathering of community, the care of family bonds, the visiting of those who are ill or alone, the gathering for prayer, the breaking of fast together. These are not merely spiritual obligations. They are, as modern research now confirms, among the most powerful biological inputs for a long and healthy life. The weekly gathering, the extended family meal, the community that checks on you. Ancient wisdom, confirmed by 35 years of epidemiology. Let's put the whole picture together. Your genes write about 20% of your longevity story. The remaining 80%, is written by movement embedded in daily life, by a felt sense of purpose that pulls you out of bed each morning, by the depth and warmth of your closest relationships, and each of these amplifies the others. People with purpose move more. People who move more sleep better. People who sleep better show up more fully for their relationships. People with strong relationships live with lower cortisol, lower inflammation, and greater reason to keep going. It is a cycle, and it runs in both directions. You can enter it anywhere. Here is your 3-step protocol. 3 specific things you can act on this week. First, the daily movement minimum. Stop thinking about exercise as a session. Start thinking about it as a baseline. Set one rule. Never sit for more than 45 minutes without standing, walking, or moving for at least 5 minutes. Use a timer if you have to. Take calls standing. Walk wherever walking is possible. The goal is a body that is never truly sedentary for long, not a perfect workout routine. Second, the purpose anchor. Write down in a single sentence the answer to this question: what am I here to do that still matters? It doesn't have to be grand. It can be as specific as, I'm here to watch my grandchildren grow up, or I'm here to learn this language, or I'm here to be the person my community calls. Research shows the specificity of purpose matters less than the presence of it. Put that sentence somewhere you see it. Read it on the days when getting up feels optional. Third, the connection investment. Identify 3 people in your life whose relationship with you has drifted because of busyness. Choose one this week. Call them. Not a message, a call, or better, a visit. Schedule one regular, recurring social commitment: a weekly walk, a monthly meal, a community gathering, a prayer group, a volunteer shift. Something with a fixed rhythm that puts you among people who see you. Treat this with the same non-negotiable seriousness as a medical appointment, because the data says it is one. Give these 3 things 6 months. Not because the results take that long to feel. Most people notice a shift in weeks, but because 6 months is enough time to see whether you've actually changed the structure of your days or merely read about changing them. The people who lived to 90 with their minds sharp and their lives full didn't stumble into that. They lived inside a set of daily realities, movement, meaning, and connection, that their biology quietly used to slow the clock. Those realities are available to you. They don't require money. They don't require a perfect body. They require a decision about how to spend the ordinary days that most people don't think count. Every day counts. The research is very clear about that. If this gave you something worth passing on, share it with someone you love who you haven't spoken to in a while. The call you make after watching this might itself be the best prescription in the video. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one. A note before you go. Everything in this video is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Living longer involves many individual health factors that vary from person to person. If you have existing medical conditions or concerns about your cardiovascular health, cognitive health, or overall longevity, please speak with a qualified healthcare professional who can look at your full picture.